Hello, and welcome to my course on Economics for Business. This is Module 1, Business Research Questions. So by the end of this module, I want you to learn how to define a business research question, what the link is between a business research question and your strategy, and I want to give you a framework for designing a practical business research question. And there's a handout in this module, it's at the bottom of this page. So what is a business research question? Well, a research question in general kind of guides the direction of a research project. It kind of defines what you want to aim to investigate, and it sets boundaries around the scope of whatever you're studying. And a business research question kind of takes this idea and applies it to practical business decision making. So I wanted to make it for kind of focused strategic inquiry, and it's designed really to explore what's kind of preventing your business objective. So asking specific questions is really, really important. So in business, we usually follow this kind of idealized path. We've got on the left-hand side as us in business, we're planning, we're creating value, we're doing awesome stuff. And we follow this path, and then we want to get to this stage where we've got really delighted customers, right? So we follow this path, and we've got some supports, we've got a great product, we've got really good processes, but then sometimes there's just a roadblock. Something is preventing us from getting our delighted customers. Kind of the idea of asking a really specific question is being able to identify and specify that roadblock. The more specific you can get, the more likely it is that you're going to come up with a reasonable action or a reasonable strategy to remove the roadblock and get to your delighted customers. So what makes a really good business research question? Well, first and foremost, it has to have an action bias. A business research question has to yield like an actionable insight. It needs to answer, what could I do next? And if it can't, then at the very least it should answer, do I have the go ahead to do something? Give you a green flag to say, go do this, go do something, at least. And then for a business research question, you need a really tight scope. You need to be really precise and really specific. If you can't get specificity, if you can't get that tight scope, start again. And also, if you come to the end of an analysis and you don't come to the right answer or the answer that you need, then again, start again and kind of broaden the scope but tighten it again. And a business research question should be focused on measurement. The language of business is numbers. Basically we want to measure the outcome or we want to measure the inputs. So I've got a framework to design the best business research question for your business. First of all, we start with kind of defining the objective, then we identify the roadblock, then we want to look at that roadblock and kind of figure out what's driving it. We want to trace backwards and pin down what causes that roadblock. And then, now that we've got kind of an idea of what's causing that roadblock, what can we do to measure that roadblock or measure the cause of the roadblock? How can we count it? How can we ask where it is? How can we find when it is? So I've written up a case study, and that's at the bottom of this page. I've written a case study called Great Beer Guys, and we have a business owner called Reggie. And he says, running Great Beer Guys, I produce and sell my beer to several boutique supermarkets around the country. He wants to invest in a larger premises and expand his production, but then to finance the expansion, he needs a really good grasp on cash flow, especially costs. And kind of recently, Reggie's been finding that his costs, especially barley malt, have really started to increase. And we kind of saw this during the end of 2021, right? With there was a shipping container crisis, and prices of all commodities went absolutely ballistic. But anyway, Reggie says that his accountant says that inflation is slowing down, and Reggie doesn't really believe his accountant. So first of all, we want to start with defining the objective. Well, the easy one. Reggie wants delighted customers. He's in business. He wants to make people happy. And he thinks that the best way to do that as a brewer is to expand production. So basically he says that to get more happy people, he wants to give them more beer. And the way to get more beer to more people is to have more places to create beer. So this is his objective. So for your business, what's the end goal you're aiming for? How do you make delighted customers happen? And then how will kind of attaining whatever intermediate goals lead to having delighted customers? And if you want to post your answers on the group forum, go ahead. it would be good to have some discussion going forward. And step 2, you want to identify the roadblock. So investment in general requires robust budgeting and forecasting, and this is really a requirement by financial institutions who would like to lend you money, and you need to show them that you can pay back the loan. You might also need to show them that your new venture will be profitable in some sense, and that's the case when you're building new premises for a brewery. So Reggie's really struggling with this because the barley malt prices are moving so fast and so such large movements. His cash flows are really, really uncertain at the moment. So we've kind of identified that the roadblock is these uncertain cash flows. So for your business, I want you to first of all assume that you have infinite resources. There's a kind of common lazy way our brains trick us, right? Like if we've got a problem, our brains just go, oh, don't worry about it. It would be solved if we had the money, but we don't have the money. Don't solve it. Let's get past that. Assume you had infinite resources. How would you solve whatever issue you're facing? And then think about also what would prevent you from solving it, even if you did have infinite resources. And these are 2 kind of steps to get clarity on what the roadblock actually is. And then kind of starting from that roadblock, I want you to kind of move backwards and trace the driver of that roadblock. So we're going to get specific, we're going to get really clear. So uncertain cash flows are caused by increasing costs in general. And the main driver of increasing costs, for Reggie at least, was barley malt prices. So therefore, the driver of uncertain cash flows is barley malt prices. Now we'll say we are getting specific here, but actually things like uncertain cash flows, that's going to be caused by a whole range of different costs either increasing fast or increasing just in very different ways. And so we would have one business research question which is focused on barley malt prices, and then we might repeat this exercise a couple of different times and have kind of a suite of different costs that we're actually investigating to create kind of a holistic analysis. But this is just one business research question. So for your business, what part of your business is the roadblock you're facing in? And what other parts of the supply chain is that part of your business connected to? And then I want you to imagine you have control over everything, like absolutely everything. What do you need to do in that case to make the roadblock you're facing larger or worse? So that's an application of actually Alex Hormozi's kind of, what's it called, backwards thinking or inverted thinking or something. So it's like, instead of asking what can I do to fix this, it's asking what can I do to make this even worse. And that kind of allows you to think of what causes your problem. And then lastly, we want to work from that problem identification to enumerate how you might measure it. So this is about counting. So we know that barley prices are measured in US dollars. We know that for budgeting and forecasting, Reggie's accountant would want to use a rate of change. And then basically this gives us the measure that we know Reggie would probably want. So for your business, think of like what you will use the information for, like what's your objective, but also how are you going to make the decision around what you're looking at. And then from there you'll kind of get a sense of what actually matters to you. Is it going to be the rate of change in some number, or is it going to be the level of the number? And if you want to join the discussion on the group forums, we'd be interested to hear your views. So finally, we kind of come to crafting the business research question. We have everything we need. We've written down what we need, and we can put it all together. So we've got the objective, we've got the roadblock, we've got a driver, and we've got a measure that we want. So Reggie might say, if he's doing the exercise, he might say, well, in order to invest in new premises, I need a good cash flow forecast. And to get that, I need to know how much barley prices will increase. And, as an economist working with Reggie, I might be like, okay, that sounds good. And then I might craft a business research question that sounds something to the effect of, the business research question is, what will be the average rate of change in barley prices in the USA over the next 5 years? So we've added a lot of specificity. I've said what's going to be the average rate of change, and then specifically barley prices in the USA specifically, and then over the next 5 years as a reasonable time frame for like the medium term. And I said before that there should be an action bias, and here the action is kind of implied. We kind of know that if the rate of change in barley prices is beyond some threshold, then Reggie's best move would probably be to either renegotiate contracts that he has or buy a futures contract to kind of hedge price risk. And then he would have kind of more certain cash flows. So I want you to now apply this to your business using the handout that's at the bottom of the page. What's your objective? What's stopping you? What's the roadblock? What causes the roadblock? And how could you make it worse? It's a really, really good question to ask. And then how can you count the cause or judge its size in some way? And if you can't judge its size, how could you possibly measure when it occurs or where it occurs? Some sort of numbers. So if you follow along the handout, and if you want to post what you find in the forums. So basically, going over summary, a good business research question is kind of essential to removing roadblocks in business. The best business research questions are going to be focused and measurable. And we have a good framework for getting a business research question. We define, we identify, we trace, and we enumerate. So you've got the tools to create your business research question, and in the next module we're going to cover kind of how to think like an economist in business.